The footage was only a few seconds long, but it flipped the entire WNBA upside down. One moment, Caitlin Clark was celebrating a deep three, hyping up the crowd like she always does. The next, she was being physically grabbed by her own coach in the middle of a game. And just like that, everything changed. Fans were stunned. Analysts went silent, and the clips spread like wildfire across social media. But what if that shocking sideline grab wasn't just a bad coaching moment? What if it was the final straw in a long, calculated campaign to break Caitlin Clark from the inside out? Because this wasn't about one coach losing control. This was about an entire organization, maybe even an entire league, trying to erase the most electrifying player women's basketball has ever seen. From missed calls and behind-the-scenes pressure, to sudden benchings, image control, and the slow, painful dimming of a superstar's light. The WNBA didn't just try to manage Caitlin Clark. They tried to silence her. But the fire they tried to smother might be the very one that burns the whole system down. It was supposed to be just another blowout win. The Indiana Fever were up big on the Connecticut Sun. Caitlin Clark was on fire. She had just drilled a cold-blooded step-back three and was walking toward the bench, feeding off the crowd like she always does. But then, out of nowhere, it happened. As Clark made her way off the court, an assistant coach reached out and physically grabbed her arm, pulling her mid-stride. It wasn't playful, it wasn't subtle, and it wasn't something fans could ignore. The video spread instantly. Millions of views. Outrage across social media. People weren't asking questions like, was that inappropriate? They were saying, fire her now. And then, almost as quickly as the moment happened, the assistant coach was gone. Fired. Officially, it was chalked up to creative differences or some vague internal dispute. But fans knew the truth, because this wasn't just about a grab. That moment exposed something that had been bubbling beneath the surface for weeks, maybe even months. And the more people looked at it, the clearer it became. The Indiana Fever weren't just coaching Caitlin Clark, they were trying to control her. And the moment they tried to pull her back physically, the internet pulled back harder. But that viral clip, it was just the tip of the iceberg. The physical grab might have shocked fans, but it wasn't the first red flag. In fact, the signs were all there. Quiet at first, easy to overlook. But now, they feel impossible to ignore, because right after that incident, Caitlin Clark changed. She didn't re-enter the game that night. Her usual fire, gone. The energy, the emotion, the edge that made her Caitlin Clark, it vanished in real time. And over the next few games, it only got worse. No more chest bumps. No more screaming after threes, just a muted, robotic version of the most dynamic player in women's basketball. Fans noticed it. Broadcasters noticed it. Even former players started asking, what the hell is happening to Caitlin Clark? And then came the stats. Her shot attempts started to drop. Her minutes? All over the place. Her role? Suddenly unclear. The player who packed arenas and built a following with her raw, emotional style was suddenly playing like a passenger on her own team. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't a slump. It was a strategy. The Fever weren't trying to help her grow. They were trying to make her smaller. They didn't want a lightning rod, a trash talker, or a walking highlight reel. They wanted a polished product. Someone marketable. Someone safe. But Caitlin Clark has never been safe. She's been fearless, loud, unapologetic, and that's exactly why she broke records and rewrote history. So when fans saw her being told to tone it down, they saw it for what it really was. An intentional campaign to reshape her into something she's not. And it was only just beginning. It wasn't just the bench treating Caitlin Clark differently. On the court, it was starting to feel like she had a target on her back. In that same game against Connecticut, the one where the coach grabbed her, Caitlin was poked in the eye, shoved to the ground, and repeatedly hit on drives, without a single whistle. The WNBA later admitted the officials missed key calls, but nothing changed. No suspensions, no warnings, just silence. And it didn't stop there. Clark has been on the receiving end of at least 5 flagrant or technical level fouls this season. Elbows, shoves, cheap shots from behind. Some of the worst came from players known across the league for their aggressive enforcer-style play. But what did the league do? Absolutely nothing. Instead, it was Caitlin who got warned. According to multiple reports, referees actually threatened her with a technical foul for hyping up the crowd. Let that sink in. The biggest draw in the WNBA, the player responsible for record-breaking ratings in sold-out arenas, was being told to tone it down or else. Hype the fans, technology clap back at a dirty foul, technology show any emotion at all? Technology, meanwhile, other players were literally checking her from behind mid-play and walking away with a common foul at most. This wasn't just inconsistent officiating. This felt like something coordinated, controlled, deliberate, and fans knew it. Media knew it. The entire league was watching it happen. And yet, no one stepped in. Because this wasn't just bad refereeing. This looked like sabotage. And if that was true, the refs were just the beginning. By this point, it was clear the issue wasn't just physical play or rough coaching. Something deeper was at work. Something that felt coordinated and coming from above. Rumors began to swirl. Was the Indiana Fever front office actually trying to rebrand Caitlin Clark? Not just coach her, but reshape her into someone else entirely? Insiders started whispering about internal pressure from team executives, and maybe even from the WNBA itself, urging Clark to fit a certain mold. Less fire, less flash, less Caitlin. They didn't want the bold, unapologetic, logo-pulling phenom from Iowa. They wanted something cleaner, safer, more marketable, someone who could sell jerseys, not stir controversy. Basically, the logo threes without the attitude. Gone was the raw competitor who played with her heart on her sleeve. In her place, a scripted version, polished, quiet, predictable. And here's the kicker. They thought it would work. They thought fans wouldn't notice. That the girl who packed arenas just by showing up could be turned into a PR-safe brand mascot. That the same fire that made her a household name could be swapped out for a friendly smile and a media-trained soundbite. But that's not who Caitlin Clark is. And the fans, they didn't buy it for a second. Because people didn't fall in love with a brand. They fell in love with a force. And trying to mute that? Trying to mold the most authentic athlete in the game into a soulless marketing product? That was the biggest miscalculation the Fever, and maybe the WNBA, ever made.
From the outside, it was easy to focus on the numbers. The minutes, the shot attempts, the lack of highlights. But for the people really watching, the ones who followed Caitlin from Iowa to the pros, it wasn't about stats. It was about her energy. Caitlin Clark has always played with emotion. It's not just a part of her game. It is her game. She thrives on it. In college, her coach Lisa Bluter gave her full freedom to lead with emotion. The results? Historic. She became the most watched college athlete in women's sports history. She said it herself. That's when I'm at my best, when I'm playing with fire. But in the pros, that fire was treated like a liability. The Fever didn't just bench her or limit her minutes, they drained the emotion out of her game. And Caitlin tried to go along with it. She smiled through interviews, she gave safe answers. But it showed. Her body language was off. Her voice, flat, the spark that once lit up every arena she walked into, gone. Fans noticed instantly. Analysts commented on it during broadcasts. You could see it in her face. This wasn't the same player who waved off defenders and pulled from the logo without blinking. They didn't just sideline her game, they silenced her soul. And it was heartbreaking to watch. Because Caitlin Clark was never meant to blend in. She was built to stand out, to fight, to lead, to ignite everything around her. But the more she tried to conform to what the Fever wanted, the more it became obvious they weren't just coaching her, they were breaking her. At first, it all felt like a stretch, like maybe fans were overreacting. A bad game here, a missed call there, maybe she just needed time to adjust. But eventually, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Because Caitlin Clark wasn't just struggling, she was being systematically dismantled, from the court to the bench to the front office. We're talking 5 separate flagrant or tech-worthy fouls in just a few months. Opponents like Kennedy Carter checking her from behind mid-play, no ejection, no flagrant. Refs looking the other way again and again. Media figures subtly turning on her, framing her fire as arrogance or unsportsmanlike. And through it all, silence from the league. No protection, no response, no accountability. If this had happened to any other high-profile rookie, especially a male player, the league would have stepped in instantly. But with Caitlin, they let it slide. Over and over. It was no longer just bad optics, it was deliberate neglect. And the worst part? Instead of rallying around the biggest star women's basketball has ever seen, the system treated her like a problem to be managed. Behind closed doors, she was being told to calm down, to pull back, to stop doing the very things that made her Caitlin Clark. The logo threes, the trash talk, the swagger, all of it was on the chopping block. They wanted her famous, but not powerful, loud on the stat sheet, but quiet in every other way. And when fans started connecting the dots, when they realized the emotional drop-off wasn't a slump, it was strategy, that's when the narrative flipped. This wasn't just mismanagement. This was sabotage. And it all came to a head the moment that coach grabbed her on live television. When the Indiana Fever finally fired the assistant coach, the headlines made it sound simple. Creative differences, team going in a new direction. But let's be honest, we all knew what really happened. That firing wasn't a clean break. It was a cover-up. The moment that clip went viral, the moment fans saw Caitlin Clark physically pulled by her own coach, the internet erupted. Commentators torched the Fever organization. Former players called it out as absolutely unacceptable. Fans flooded every comment section demanding answers. And most importantly, Caitlin Clark stayed silent. No tweets, no statements, no post-game soundbite trying to smooth things over. Just quiet. And that silence spoke louder than any press release ever could. Everyone watching knew this wasn't just about a rogue coach getting emotional. This was about a culture, a system, that had been trying to rewrite Clark's identity since the day she arrived in the league. You don't draft a generational superstar and then try to shrink her. You don't take the most exciting player in basketball and try to clip her wings. That firing wasn't justice. It was survival. The Fever didn't make a bold decision. They reacted to an explosion they couldn't contain. Because the truth is, the damage had already been done. The system had already exposed itself, and fans weren't just watching anymore. They were keeping receipts. This wasn't just one coach being held accountable. This was a reckoning, a message, a warning to every front office, every ref, and every executive in the WNBA. You don't silence a star like Caitlin Clark. You unleash her, or you get out of the way. The truth is simple. Caitlin Clark isn't just a player on the Indiana Fever. She is the system. Her energy, her passion, her unpredictability, that's the future of women's basketball. Not a polished product to be packaged and sold, but a raw force to be unleashed and celebrated.
Look at the numbers. WNBA ratings dropped by more than 50% when Caitlin was sidelined with injury. Her debut game pulled in over 2 million viewers. Her jersey sales shattered records. She's not just a star, she's a phenomenon. And yet, the league has been slow to recognize what she really represents.
Instead of celebrating her fire and personality, they tried to contain it. Turn down the volume, quiet the voice, mute the soul. But you can't put out a flame by telling it to burn quietly. You can't tame a hurricane by asking it to breeze lightly. Caitlin Clark is here to shake the foundation, to rewrite the rules, to remind the world that women's basketball isn't just about fundamentals. It's about heart, swagger, and soul. And if the Fever, or the WNBA, want to keep winning, they have a choice. They can keep trying to mold Caitlin into something she's not, or they can let her be the unstoppable force she was born to be. Because the future isn't safe. It's loud, it's relentless, it's Caitlin Clark. The firing of one coach might feel like justice, but it's just the surface of a much deeper battle. One between control and freedom, silence and voice, conformity and raw power. Caitlin Clark's story isn't just about basketball. It's about a culture ready to evolve, or risk losing its brightest star forever. Will the WNBA finally embrace the fire, the passion, and the personality that made Caitlin Clark a phenomenon? Or will they keep trying to tame her, only to watch the game fade in the process? One thing is clear. The league and the fans are watching. And Caitlin, she's not going anywhere. Because some flames are meant to burn wild.